We are recording, right? Did it say recording? Record. There we go. Cheese and crackers. Hi, we hate to do a whole show and have recorded. Hi, I am one of your hosts, James Lott Jr. Welcome to Extra Connections Live Race Talk here on JLJ Media. We do this once a month, just about. And you guys love tuning in. So we are here to talk about all things race, as we usually do. And I don't do it alone because it's not just me, it's we. It's Jared Karol. Hi, Jared.
Hey, hi, James. Hi, everyone. Good to be here once again. I think our 7th, 8th, 10th, 100th time.
I'm gonna finally count it one day. I'm gonna finally count it. See, I'm getting curious how many we've done. I want to say 7th or 8th at this point. You guys love tuning in. Oh, that's you. So now you're following me. I want to say that, but I'm not sure. I don't want to give false information. We don't do that. Not on this channel.
That's right. That's right.
Everything's fact checked. Everything's fact checked. But yes, we've done a bunch of these. But I always say this. I said it last time, and I'll say it again. The month went by fast. I'm just like, did we just do this a second ago?
Well, it did. It's interesting. Our conversations are both unique because you are unique, I'm unique, and together we're unique. And
yes.
This is kind of what I do all day, every day with everyone. In some, maybe not as structured, but as I'm not on a live YouTube talk every day, all day, every day. But my work, my friends, my call, we're just talking about this stuff because it's important.
It is, but it just goes by so fast. And I am a year older. I am 54 years old now. Thank you. And you're right, black don't crack. I will say that on the show. But your birthday is coming up, so the next time we come back, you'll be a year older.
Yeah, June 8th, I'll be 29.
Sure. Okay. Again, we don't tell lies on this channel.
That's right,
Karol.
I'll be 50. I'll be 50 on June 8th.
It's a major milestone. So congratulations. It's a major milestone. You made it to half century. Join the club, Jared. Join the club.
Somehow I made it.
Somehow you made it. Yes. But we'll talk that next time. I'll have some questions for you next time we come on. How you feel about that?
Okay.
As you answer that. So of course, thank you for joining us. We actually do this once a month. This is actually an open forum, open space. The live chat is here. We encourage comments. Of course, in the chat. No bullying or hate speech. I will kick you out. Chances are I will tell you off first and then kick you out. That's what I do first. That's what I do. But it's a safe space for everybody to exchange ideas. And that's what we do. That's what me and Jared do every time we talk. When should I say that? I have my list, kids. Have my list. Some names you'll know why it's exactly on this list this week. Some will be like perplexed. But as usual, I'm going to read them off. Make sure all my phones are off. Okay, I think they're beeping. And this page, it was 2 pages long. Okay. Here you go, Jared. Jared, I was asking you, are you ready?
Yep, I always take a couple names down and then I just stop and listen.
Yes, and I always ask you afterwards. So if you're new to the show, so we do. Okay, here we go. Governor DeSantis, undocumented workers, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the LA Dodgers, the Anaheim Angels, Judge Joe Brown, Wanda Sykes, Ming Na Wen, Mean Joe Green, Donna Summer, Six the Musical, Shamar Moore, Beyonce, Big Frida, the late Jim Brown, The Color Purple, the new version, Halle Berry, The Little Mermaid, Mark Consuelos, Tupac, and Afeni Shakur. The Friday movies, Dionne Warwick, Burt Bacharach, Hal David, Luther Vandross, Clive Davis, Roberta Flack, Gladys Knight, Elton John. Stevie Wonder, Brittany Griner, the WGA, SAG-AFTRA, the DGA, Taraya, Senator Tim Scott, George Lopez, Representative George Santos, Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, D.L. Hughley. Timbaland, Missy Misdemeanor Elliott, Rage Against the Machine, Shaka Khan, The Spinners, DJ Kool Herc, George Michael, Don Cornelius, and Soul Train. Birthday Girl Janet Jackson, Alex Newell, Deborah Messing, Lucy Liu, Lisa Ling, Marquise Houston, Nick Cannon and his 12 baby mamas, Jonathan Majors, the late Harry Belafonte, the documentary 1000% Me Growing Up Mixed, W. Kamau Bell, Beef, the TV show on Netflix, Walt Disney World in Florida, New York Mayor Eric Adams, King Charles III and Queen Camilla, Jamie Foxx, the late Jordan Neely, Carmelo Anthony, the late Jerry Springer, and happy 43rd anniversary today to Pac-Man. There you go, kids. That's my list. As I always say, anything stand out to you?
I have to say that I didn't follow any connections there. I was excited when you started with Ron DeSantis, and then it went in so many different directions. But I don't have any. The only thing I wrote down just at the end, because I learned early on that if I start writing things down, I'm not going to be able to keep up. So I just have to kind of listen. But I am interested in that 1000% Me, the W. Kamau Bell, who actually lives in my neighborhood. I've heard, I've seen, and I've heard that he does, and I really like him. I like his work.
I watched it, so I need you to watch it first so we can talk about it. Yeah, I need you to watch it so we can talk about it.
Okay, yeah, I'll it's on HBO Max, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, which I think I get because I got something like with my internet, I get that. Otherwise, I wouldn't subscribe to that shit.
Folks,
But
he doesn't even watch TV, so for him to even know that part, I'm very proud of you that you know.
But it is, I know it just is it a one-time thing or is it like a series?
Yeah,
okay, it's just one. Okay, then I'll watch it definitely. Yeah, I can't commit to a series.
Again, he doesn't watch TV, so I'm proud of him just knowing that part. I'm just proud of you knowing that part.
Exactly.
Of all the things I said. So a chunk of them that I read are the new Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, and many of them were Black, except for George Michael wasn't. But Rage Against the Machine is a powerful group for a generation that was very political, so that's why. And then they're also going into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Most of it is stuff that's happened in the news recently. Obviously, Harry Belafonte passing, Jim Brown passing, very controversial big figures. Obviously, Jerry Springer passing. For like it or not, he changed the face of television. It doesn't matter what you think about him on the show. I was with Jerry for a while. I was doing the whole thing back in the 90s. Didn't matter, but he did change the face of television. And a few other things are just new things that are happening and people are getting in trouble. So I just want to start off with, since the last time we spoke, besides turning a year older, I'm for the first time in my life nervous for my safety in America. And a lot of my friends who are similar to me, who are Black, gay, or Black and gay, or whatever in there, are feeling the same way. The NAACP put out a statement about Florida saying we shouldn't go there right now. At the same time, if you're Latino, watch your back also, because they passed that law and now there are empty construction sites in Florida because they're shipping undocumented workers to New York and Massachusetts and places like that. At the same time, we have out here in Los Angeles, in my backyard, a homophobic, I feel, thing happened with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence for the Dodgers Gay and Lesbian Night that they do all the time. They always do all the time every year, by rescinding an offer for an award and rescinding their invitation. But it was just recently, I think as of yesterday, the Anaheim Angels said, you can come to us if you want to. That was kind of a nice thing there. Also, the Jordan Neely thing. He was another Black man in a chokehold killed by a white person, but it has divided the country. This ex-Marine says he was trying to protect. Chokehold was too long. Either way, a man is dead who was a troubled man, obviously, had mental issues. And there are many whites who have sided with the Marine. And when everybody's kind of saying it was still a murder, no matter how you look at it, but it's also causing race stuff. So it's just a few little things to bring up to you. I want to talk about Mr. Karol that have gotten me actually worried about where I'm traveling, where I'm going. I travel all over the country, and just kind of when actual laws are being passed in certain states and things are happening. White supremacists are marching in front of the Capitol, and they're allowed to do so because freedom of assembly, and they were peaceful, but they're all wearing masks and just openly marching. So it's getting a little scary out there. So I'm going to start with those 3 or 4 things and Jerry Springer that all are out there right now. That it's even him, race stuff was part of his shtick. Everything it was all stuff. So I'm just like, hi Jared, how you doing? We're gonna talk about? Wherever you want to start, we can start because you like to talk forever.
I know. Well, I just want to say, and I say this because I care about you and because I want to model for anyone whoever's watching. Yes, we get into intellectual things and it's good. I think I'm not an anti-intellectualist at all. And I know there are people. So I just want to start by saying, I'm sorry that you have to think about this stuff personally. I choose to think about it because I do this work and I understand it, but I don't have to. I can go to Florida. I was in Florida twice at the beginning of the year. Once for work, once to see my mom and grandma for her 90th birthday. I didn't have to worry about anything as a straight white man because I think I could go up and shake Ron DeSantis' hand. He'd love me. Well, he probably wouldn't once he got to know me, but on the surface he would, right? Yes. And so I just want to acknowledge that, you and so many people who I know personally and who I don't know, but I know are out there, have to think about this shit. And I think, God, where to start?
Yeah, I know where to start.
So. Something that I've been, and actually, for those listening, and James, I know you know this, I'm doing a LinkedIn audio event tomorrow morning, and my friend Cosette Strong and I it's called Dialogue, Not Debate. So it's kind of similar to what we do. We don't really get into debates. We might disagree. We might have, thing, but we don't really debate. We just we dialogue, we listen, we share, we hear. So something similar, and the topic, and I had this kind of idea of like, I'm going to just take a quote and say, all right, here's a quote. Let's talk about it. Who's in? And Cosette was the first one to respond. I'm like, all right, when do you want to do it? Boom, May 23rd, done. So the quote is from Kazu Haga, who actually lives in Oakland, or at least he did at the time of the writing of this book that I'm going to refer to. I'm assuming he still does. And his book is called Healing Resistance, A Radical Different Approach to Harm. So his whole theory is about nonviolence and really the commitment to what nonviolence is. And he dispels a bunch of myths about what people think nonviolence is and what it isn't, et cetera. So one quote, one of many quotes, but the one we're going to talk about tomorrow is, people are never the enemy. Injustice is. And the reason I like that quote, the origin of me wanting to talk about that, and Cosette kind of volunteered to be my talk partner, was kind of from within. Like Adrienne Marie Brown talks a lot about like the infighting, people in justice movements, in movement, oh, you do it that way, well, I do it this way, so you're an idiot, like that, all that kind of bitching and stuff. But now when you're talking about like Ron DeSantis and, all these other, people, the idea is that Black people are the enemy, gay people are the enemy, undocumented workers are the enemy. We're going to ship the enemy from Florida up to New York, where they like those people. Oh, you like them? Well, here you go. Let's see if you really like them now that they're on your front porch.
Sanctuary states, as they call them, yes.
Yeah. So this idea that, people are the enemy. If we just get rid of those people, then we'll be good. So obviously, we know that's a bunch of bullshit, and that's wrong and wrong. Even if you had a theory, hey, undocumented workers are wrong because of this, that, and that, okay, you could, but to like really just make it about like you people are wrong. So the reason I like Kazuhaga's quote is it's tempting for us who know that that's a bunch of bullshit and know that DeSantis and all the people times 100 that you mentioned are causing harm. It's easy to focus on them as the enemy versus the injustice that they are part of perpetuating. And so I don't want to, maybe this is like a little warm up for my call with Cosette
Yeah,
tomorrow.
maybe it is. Maybe
I'll
it
get
is.
some of my talking points out. So I guess my question for us, or one of the questions, is how do we understand that yes, we have to deal with a Ron DeSantis, etc. But attacking, ad hominem, all the things, there's going to be another Ron DeSantis. There's going to be another Trump. There's always going to be people who are doing harmful things. And so how do we address the injustice that's happening, and not make it about just the people?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, because coming as a Black man, I think it's just, as long as there's white folks, it's not going to happen unless the white folks stop saying it's going to happen. It's just because I feel like I look at the big picture of things. I'm very business minded, very much like I look at the big picture, and I go, okay, so just say we don't document workers. Okay, can we find ways to get them documented where it's not so complicated? They fulfill a workforce that no one else wants to do. Let's just be really real about that. They do jobs I don't want to do. I don't want to be in the field. I don't want to be doing this, that, and they're hard workers. Sorry, I feel that way, and I feel like let's find a way to get them documented. Let's find a way to get them into the system. There must be a way to do that. So I feel like we need someone who sees some kind of vision like that, instead of shipping them off to a sanctuary state and saying, bye, because everything you just said was true. You can't run away from the problem. You can't just ship the problem out. It's like, it'll be something else. You get them all out of there. Okay, well, now you got other problems, because there are a lot of folks of other races and other ages or whatever say they don't want to do those jobs. They really don't want. They're not doing them. There's something they don't want to do them. So it's like, well, let's find a way to keep those who are doing them and get them legal somehow. I feel like there's just stuff that I just feel like there's a bigger issue. So I like that. Take the people out of it and look at the problem. I really like that. It's like, take the race out of it. But how do you do that if a person sees race?
Right. Well,
Only.
and the reason I like this quote is, it says people are never the enemy injustices. It doesn't say, therefore, we should not try to address or talk to the people who are causing the injustice, or hold them accountable, or whatever the language we use is, right? And I think sometimes those get conflated. Someone says, what do you mean people aren't the enemy? This guy did this and this. It's like, yeah, we know, but it's the emphasis on how we're addressing the harm that the people have caused, have implemented. I guess I'm curious, and I think, and this, to me, this kind of brings it home a little bit, is, all right, so in Florida, they've passed the don't say gay, law. And that's, by now that's kind of old news, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. Right. Yeah,
but the repercussions of it are big, and are, anyone who cares about this stuff, knew and now knows that it was going to be big, right? For individuals, for kids, for families, for teachers, for all kinds of people, directly and indirectly, right? And so the injustice is the law. The law that was passed is the injustice that's causing, continuing the injustice. Of course, people, namely Ron DeSantis, passed the law, or pushed the law, or wrote the law, or whatever, whoever was part of it, right? And so how do we address, or try to reverse, or attack, or talk about the law in this particular case? And now, and not to just pick on Florida, but just such an easy target. There's no DEI programs in higher institution. So we see this thinking. I see it in my day job. We see it all over the place. And for the uninitiated, so there are people who already agree with that. And then there are people over here who are like, that's fucked up. Right? But then you have this vast swath in the middle who may lean a certain way, but are kind of persuadable. Right? And how many people are going to just be, who don't really, they don't do this work. They don't have these conversations. Maybe they don't love DeSantis, but they kind of hear like, yeah, I don't need DEI in my university. My kid's going off to college. I don't need, good for him. Right. So they're not really thinking about it. And so it really is the injustice, not just the DeSantis that's, this evil guy. I mean, I think he is an evil guy, but what do we do to, reverse some of these things that are happening?
I'll pick another state just for sake. So we're not picking on Florida, because not just there's not that we got Kentucky, we got Tennessee, we got Arkansas, we got many states to choose from. But yeah, Florida is the low hanging fruit at the moment because it's just doing everything. He's doing, as we say, he's doing the most right now. But it's another state who wants to again, they're not thinking it through. Wants to pass a law that no one under 18 go to a parade. Because it started out with the gay parade. They didn't want anybody under 18 going to a gay parade, but they would do it for all parades. So someone straight actually said, I remember seeing all the comments about it. Well, then the way they phrased it means that no parade. If you're going to do it, means no parades. So I mean, we can't bring our kids to a 4th of July parade or say, but it's like, that's what we're saying. It's like they're starting to try to pull these things and make it sound like it's something else, but then are you really thinking it through? There's a bill that's been passed in another state too about you can refuse, because you can't do race in terms for the federal, you can't do race when it comes to medical treatment, but you can refuse someone with a gender issue or sexual orientation. You can refuse to help them, which they don't understand. At hospitals, when you become a doctor or a nurse, it's do no harm. You take an oath. I took an oath when I was a nurse. You don't turn people away. But they have these laws trying to put in place so you can do that. But it's like, you're not really, what if you're suspected to be, how are you gonna know you're gay? It's as you walk in with some kind of, rainbow over your face or something. I mean, I don't know how they're gonna, so it's kind of like some of these things that are happening, the people who are trying to pass them are wrapping them up with religion or some straightness or something and make it sound like, no, we don't want this, because they're trying to get to a certain segment of the population. And so I think to stop it, to go back to your question, I'm really at a loss because it's getting worse. So I don't even know how you have to either chop off the head of those people and the newer generation coming. I have no idea. I really have no idea.
Yeah, well, I don't either. I mean, I'm not, I'm not a politician. I'm not well versed in all the, the ways that, local and state and national, government works. I mean, at the detailed level.
Right.
But I do, like, for example, there's in Colorado, you may have heard, what do they call in there? It's called like "Do It for the Kids," something kind of.
There's a gay governor there. That's amazing.
That's right, Jared Polis, right?
Cousin Jared. Yes,
that's right.
That's gay.
Well, there's a woman I follow on LinkedIn, Syra Rao, and she lives in Denver. I think she ran for I don't know if it was mayor of Denver, some local office in I think 2018. She lost, and she's an Indian woman, and she and her business partner, I guess, Regina Jackson, who's a Black woman, they wrote a book and they do this thing called Race to Dinner. And anyway, they're out there and they're very like community organizer kind of political. So they're doing this thing on June 5th in Denver at the Capitol building. I can't go because my kids are graduating from middle school. But I actually looked into it to see if I could. And it's basically, and I don't have the whole story, but they're basically going to the Capitol and saying, hey, and they're trying to do this thing like buy back the guns and then get rid of them, destroy them. And the idea, I think, is we're going to stay here for as long as it takes until the governor comes out and talks to us and agrees to some demand. I can't remember exactly what it is. So on one, you think like, okay, that's kind of cool. But is that going to change anything? That's one town, one city, big city, but it's in Denver. It's not like, but I think that kind of stuff, that kind of thinking, that kind of conviction, that kind of commitment and dedication. And even if it doesn't it doesn't work, whatever the end goal is, the awareness that it raises, I think that type of thing is what is gonna, over time win out. Because the easy, well, it's not really easy, but the thing that seems quicker is to like, well, if we just got rid of DeSantis, if we, but you're not going to do that. And B, even if you did, there's someone that's going to come up and have the same views. So it's almost like a majority. If we can get like a majority that, gets some of these laws, gets some of these things reversed, gets other, laws in place that don't allow, the things that are being put in place. It's tricky. I mean, even as I'm talking, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like I do, but I don't. Like, it's so frustrating because it's like, I don't know.
Okay, so I will cut in.
Please save me.
You're my friend. No, I as a person who protested back in the day, who did protest back in the 80s and the 90s, and protested in Sacramento and San Francisco, and I mean I've in New York, I've done protesting. I do believe you should still try, right? I mean, I'm gonna do these shows and other shows that I do like it until I'm not on Earth anymore. I'm still gonna do it. It's like, and sometimes you change one mind or two here and there. I kind of get what you're saying, where you're going, but I'm interpreting what you're saying. It's either cut off the head of the snake, another snake grows, but it's like you should try from within. That's what I did a lot of my jobs back in the 90s, when there were certain laws where I get fired for being black or being gay or whatever, I get fired. I started changing some of the laws within the system in the company. We hired more black folks. We hired more Hispanic. Back then, we were called F2M. I hired the first transgender people. Like, it was like, I tried to start from within, change the culture within, and that almost kind of forced the bosses out, so to speak. It's almost like you plant something and it roots it, and then it starts to grow and pushes out the weeds, so to speak. So I kind of like that method too. I'm open to that method, because we all forget this, folks out there, everybody at home. We're private citizens, they're public servants. And I use the word servant. They are here to serve us. We put them there. Whether it is you didn't vote or you did vote, doesn't matter. It's all collective. These people who are in these positions, from city comptroller to city controller to mayor, vice mayor, we put them, they're all elected officials. And then the ones that are appointed is because we elected people who now are appointed. Like, it starts from us. I think we're almost forgetting that we're in charge. And so we have to really get back to, I feel like we have to get back to that, where we have to go, okay, we don't like what's going on. We don't like this person, what they're doing. So there are a lot of Floridians who don't agree with George Santos. And I love that Disney said, fuck you, we're not going to do the $2 billion project we're going to do because of your gay thing.
Yeah.
For you. Now you lose out. I mean, Walt Disney World Epcot Center is one of the biggest, I mean, it's the biggest tourist attraction in the country. And like, you're screwing with them. So it's almost like I just want to get back to where we are in charge.
Yeah.
We've lost charge of that, but we are in charge. It's like they're so busy in our business, but we're private citizens. You don't have the right to ask me what I do in my house, but you're public servants. We have the right to ask you what you're doing to our house. That's something that's always just sticking with me for the last month. I've been like, we need to get back to the core of that.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I love that we are in charge. And it makes me, another thing that popped into my head, there's a woman named Deepa Iyer, Iyer, Deepa Iyer, and she has a model called the social change ecosystem. And I really like her because she's clearly, if you read her work, and I don't know if she's written a book or not, but like her website and blogging and stuff like that, she clearly knows what's up from a social justice perspective. And, she's done the work, she's doing the work, and her social change ecosystem is kind of this wheel, and it has, I don't know, I haven't looked at it for a while, but like 12 or 15 different ways that one can be in the work. And the idea is like, hey, not all of us are protesters. Not all of us are community organizers. Not all of us are speakers. Not all of us are, whatever. And she has all these different kind of capacities, if you will, or categories of, where the work is needed, right? Storytelling, behind the scenes stuff. Like there's all kinds of different ways. And it resonates with me for a couple of reasons. One, because it's true. Like we're not, and I've done a lot of purpose work. I used to be a purpose coach, and people are motivated by different things. We're inspired by different things. We might have the same kind of end goal. That's, that we want justice, we want equity, all the things, but to get us there, to get us to do work, to, if someone comes and says, Jared, I need you to stay up till midnight and then you'll get your bonus. I don't know. I may or may not do that. Right. But if someone said, hey, if you work collaboratively with like 3 different people over the next week, then you'll get your bonus. Shit. Okay. I'll do that. I'm kind of using a kind of an absurd example, but you get what I'm saying. So if everyone's like, yeah, you have to be a protester or else you're not one of us. Like, oh shit, I hate being in crowds. Blah. Like that's like an ultimatum that doesn't make any sense. So I like that idea. The other thing I like, this idea of we are in charge is, and I have to remind myself of this. It takes me back to this idea of like being invested in, but not attached to outcomes. So I am invested in social justice, equity, equality, all the things. And I am doing what I can in my spheres of influence to achieve that. And I know that I have integrity in my intentionality, et cetera, but I can't affect the outcomes that are beyond me, that are bigger than me. And if I get caught up in like, I didn't do that, or I failed here, I did this, then it's going to take away from the efforts that I'm able to give.
I like what you said. I'm glad you actually said this because, just for an example, I mentioned 3 things in my list: the WGA, the DGA, and SAG-AFTRA. We're on strike right now. The writers are on strike in Hollywood and in New York and in all places all over the country. And I'm here in LA, and I live by several studios, Sony and Paramount and all them. I don't protest. I'm not out there marching with them, but I brought food to some of my friends. So I'm that whole thing of you can do what you can. And so we went by and honked and raised our fist to them. They loved it. I gave Venmo to some of my friends who are out there who really needed it. Support their other projects that are non-writing projects. I always say support them. You're right. Everybody can get their part. And I learned this also as a caregiver recently of my mom, my stepdad, that it's like, if you can come by for a couple of hours, we'll take it. Or if you can go to the store for us, show up how you can, because it all works together. And I've learned that lesson recently. And we're going through that right now. I said in Hollywood, we're going through that. And if SAG actually might go on strike next, and the direction may go on. I mean, so far, all because of greed, and that's another story. But they're all about to go on strike, which is going to it's already shut down half of Hollywood already, and New York and everything. So it's kind of like, but that's the whole point, is that there are folks who are on the front lines of any movement. When I was younger, I was on the front lines. Now I'm a little older, and things hurt. I'm still doing important stuff by having shows like this, or on my other show, I talk about the writers, I talk about the inequities. I bring up, like I said again, support the ones that are out there. Drop off some pizzas, run by and say hello. Like just give support, I think. And that's something when it comes to this is, again, you may not be a representative, you may not want to run for office, but if you do, you should try. You never know. But you can go to, if you want to go, some folks go to town hall meetings. I went to a couple. Like some go to those. If you want to go to that, at least read the paper. Go online, read what's going on in your neighborhood, see what's going on, talk to your neighbors. Like just like to see. I mean, there's little things you can do and find out what's going on. And send in a donation. If you could do money, send in $5. They said Obama got so much money his first term because everybody was giving $5, $10, $20. It adds up. 100 pennies equals $1. It's like, seriously, it's like, I just feel like, I love that you said it, because I'm very much the same vein of, and I said, that's why I'm calling out folks who don't vote. To me, you're just as bad if you don't vote. It's like vote something. I mean, like, because again, that still affects everything. That still affects everything. I hope people in chat room like got your hand. Still affects everything. So I'm glad you said that. I also just want to say something too. There are some legislators who want to change the voting age to 25. And you know why? Because Gen Z is really starting to come out now. They have their first Gen Z representatives in the office, and they're starting to, and they think differently actually than these old coots. The Gen Z people are not taking certain jobs. They're not, they don't care about, they're doing the pronouns. They don't care about the gay stuff. Like it's like this whole new generation, which of course is how it should be, evolution, that's how it should be. There, so yeah, so let's change it from 18 to 25 now. Let's do it later. Like that's gonna do a big deal. Like it's just like it's I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm almost thinking it's a joke. Like am I reading it as a joke, as a prank? And no, it's not a prank, it's like for real.
Well, you know what I can't remember if we've discussed this on the show or not, James. I've talked to other people about it. You know, there's one theory, and I think like that example, like really raising the voting age to 25, how transparently, you know, how much fear is in that proposal, right? And to me, it's a perfect representation if we are to, you know, believe this theory that what we're experiencing now, and when I say now, I don't know what the time period is, maybe, you know, the next 20 years, the last 20 years, I'm not sure exactly what now is, but, you know, with the stuff that's going on with, you know, transgender stuff, with the reversal of, you know, Roe v. Wade, with, you know, all this stuff, the no DEI, you know, the backlash against DEI and the critical race theory. What's that?
And banning books.
Banning books. I mean, on one hand, like, you know, some of this stuff, it's been happening forever in various ways, you know, and I'm not a historian, but I'm sure people, oh yeah, this is very similar to what happened back. So it's not like this is all new, but it feels more desperate.
Feels pronounced.
And pronounced. And some folks say, hey, this is the last hurrah of a dying, I don't even know, a dying what? A dying breed, a dying way of thinking, a dying, you know, generation. I don't know exactly what's dying, but that, hey, this is part of the evolution. So here we are, and, you know, Gen Z is starting to say, fuck you, we don't give a shit, you know, we're gay, we're whatever, call us whatever you want, but just let us do our work, right? Like those types of things. And people are like, oh no, we can't have that. We can't have women, you know, we can't have, you know, girls be boys and boys be girls, because then the sports would be, you know, unfair, and, you know, all this stuff, right? And it's like, oh, basically what's behind it is like, oh shit, like we're not going to be in charge anymore. And if we let, you know, this happen, you know, and so part of me wants to kind of believe that. And because like, okay, maybe, you know, I'm 50, well, I'll be 50. Wait, Jared, did you just say you're 50? No, I'm not.
Yes,
50.
you said it. You'll be 50. Yes.
I'm 49, but I'll be 50 soon. Right. I don't know if things are going to change in my lifetime, the next, you know, hopefully 30, 40 years. Right. Or it could be 6 years. I don't know, whatever it is. Right. But, you know, I have kids, you know, 14-year-old twins. What's it going to be like when they're my age? Are we still going to be having this desperation, or will it have died out, and, you know, new thinking, new progression? Or, so that's one theory, which I'm kind of hoping is true. But then there's those like, no, it's just the same bullshit. It just kind of goes up and down. It's been happening for hundreds of years. It might get better for a while, and then there's going to be someone who makes it worse. And so I don't know.
I'm with you the second one. So I mean, because I go by some of the things I was protesting 30, 35 years ago. It's still the same today. I always make an example. Listen to Marvin Gaye's landmark album, What's Going On, in 1971, and everything he's talking about, unfortunately, is relevant today. And now it's how long? That's 50-some years ago. That's so, you know what I mean? Like, if it's like some things we were talking about is still going on. Yes, we've had so many advancements. I mean, like we really did have. I mean, the whole gay thing really did go kind of fast in a weird way. It was like after Reagan said AIDS, or finally, then it kind of accelerated. And then we had same-sex marriage, not gay marriage, same-sex marriage. They changed the words. We all know what that's about. It's like it kind of accelerated. We got to a point where that happened really fast. And then transgender issues started coming up really fast. It's like really fast. And so I think I feel like it's just a backlash that always happens when something gets very popular.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this not to really compare, but it's just something that happens. Disco. I was around. I was a child of the 70s. I loved disco. I remember I was a disco dancer. I remember the whole thing. By the late 70s, it got so big, there was a backlash.
Yeah.
I mean, rock musicians got mad, everybody punk got mad. And because disco was mainly started from what? Gay, Black, Latino, bam, women. It was completely, it's just completely huge. It was everywhere. There was a disco Star Wars. I mean, everything was disco. So people backlash against it. I think the same thing is happening now again. It's that, but with the drag queen situation and transgender situation, RuPaul's Drag Race has gotten so mainstream and so big, folks who just never even heard of a drag queen probably in their lives, suddenly they're, as they say, shoved down their throat. That's what anybody else says to me, your lifestyle is shoved down my throat. But it's not even shoved, it's just that you're seeing it. Because before you may have not seen it on regular TV. We're noticing a lot of the shows on TV, they're hardly any gay characters anymore. At one point, there was tons. It was just obviously a Will and Grace, and now it's hardly any. And I think because it got mainstream.
Yeah.
It's not the regular folks. So it goes back to what you almost said earlier. You didn't say it, but I have a feeling, I'm going to say it because I feel like that's what's going on also, is when people see things that they don't like, or see something coming up, they feel like they're being erased or replaced. And that's what's happening with most cisgendered white men, straight white men. And that's what's happening with some white women. And that's what's happening. And I'm seeing all this masculinity talks, and everybody's all this stuff. They want women to go back in the dark ages. I say, women, be careful, because men are going to turn on you too, because they want you to go back in the dark ages. 30 years ago, you couldn't get a credit card without a father or a husband's name. I mean, and that wasn't that long ago, folks. So I'm just saying I'm seeing people, they feel like they're being erased when they're not being erased. It's a whole illusion. Nobody's erasing you, but you never had to think about it before. So now you got to think about it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. So I totally agree with that. And there's a quote I've been using way too often. And I say this way too often, not because it's not relevant, just like I wish I didn't have to use it as often. But when you're used to privilege, equity feels like oppression. So that's what's happening, what you just described, right? And I wonder if that'll ever change, or change enough where that argument is kind of non-mainstream. So obviously, and back to DeSantis and all the states that are passing gender affirming, banning gender affirming care, et cetera. Like it's that I would call that kind of mainstream, hate.
I agree.
Mainstream discrimination, right? Legal discrimination, state, legislated discrimination. So, and we know, you and I know, people listening know, probably a lot of people know that, it's not like transgender people just, became a thing in the last 30 years. Like, the transgender has been around ever since there've been people. Same with gay, same with everything, right? And so, but, we know that, yes, there were certain people here and there, but there weren't really movements that were big enough. There were movements, but there weren't movements that were big enough to actually make progress like we have seen in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? And so I'm wondering then, and this is going back to my first potential theory. I had the two theories. One is like, this is just the last kind of, no, it's going to end. Or is it like, no, it's just cycles. It's just going to go in cycles. But part of me thinks like this is the last, because we haven't really seen this level of equity and fighting for equity and success in gaining some element of equity ever. And so, yes, we're seeing tons of backlash, and yes, it's ridiculous and, harmful and, punitive and all the things, but that's because there's some mainstreaming of it. as you said, whether it's in entertainment or in politics or sports or whatever it is, right? There is a certain level of acceptance by some of us, by many of us, by half of us, I don't know, right? And so, in a way, what we're seeing now, the punitiveness is in a reaction to the success that's happened, whereas the punitiveness that we saw 100 years ago, whether it's race or gender or anything, was just because that was the way we did things. So do you see what I'm getting, the comparison?
Oh,
so
no, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let me break this down. Let's break this whole whatever hoo-ha down to this. I'm left-handed.
Yeah.
I when I was a kid, they didn't want me to be left-handed.
Yeah.
They tried, but I fought it and I was left-handed. But by the time I got to the 70s, it wasn't as bad. But a grandmother of mine who was left-handed was beaten out of her.
My mom was left-handed when she was a kid.
There you go. So my point is, there's not more left-handed people. People think there are. There's not more. It's just that we were beaten or killed or burned at the stake for being witches back in the day. So it's like, we were, so I love your point. We were always around, whether it was left-handedness or handicapped or mentally unstable, all these things, it's not new. It's not like there's more. There's not more. There's not more police brutality. It's just caught on camera more.
Exactly.
There's certain things that, again, it's like there are always evil people in office, but just now it's more. It does that part does seem more desperate because they actually are reversing things that have been in place for decades. But it's not new either. It's not new. The fact that they don't like Black folks or gay folks or Latin folks or Asian hate, all this stuff, none of it's new. It's just more. It's just a little more pronounced, and it's a little different the way it's being delivered.
Right.
Today's
well, let's take like I work for a company, small startup, and we do DEI training. Right. I mean,
you're not going to Florida. You're not going to Florida.
Well, actually, 2 of our employees live in Florida. 2 of them, we're 9 people total, and 2 of them live in Florida, Orlando and Miami.
I'm so curious what do they think. I'm curious what they think.
Well, it's I mean, it's a whole
another story. That's another story.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm not like there's nothing to hide, but it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
But my point is, still, I want to go back to this idea that yes, like left-handedness. I mean, if you think about I don't know if arbitrary is the right word, but just the normalization of what's normal by what I call the narrative of the privileged majority, right? Yes. Like this is normal, that's normal. Oh, in gender, this is normal. In race, this is normal. In sexual orientation, this is normal, right? There are all these things that are normal, and then anything else is abnormal. And if it's abnormal, then it can't be tolerated, right? That's basically what we know about history, right? But what I'm saying is now, and you've heard people argue like, oh, anti-critical race theory is really just kind of the modern version of like anti-Blackness, right? So it's just different language, but really the fear behind it and the thinking behind it is we can't have that because it's gonna accelerate the opportunities for non-white cis men, and that is not okay. So is it as harmful as slavery or lynching? No, of course not. But it's the same mentality. So I'm still kind of grappling with this idea. All right, of course that's a bad thing. Of course these laws that are passing, these kind of normalization of hate is bad. And it's only, does it seem worse because of the progress that's been made?
Yes.
Whereas, like, what if I'm just trying to imagine this alternate universe of the last 40 years, if there wasn't the progress that has been made.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like we want to go back to making less progress, but I'm just saying, would the stuff that's going on now be happening? It's kind of a chicken or the egg, because, okay, if there wasn't progress, then there wouldn't be this backlash. But then if there wasn't progress, then there wouldn't be progress, and things would just be normal like they used to be. So it's kind of this, what do we do? Like, we're not just going to like, okay, yeah, we'll just kind of stay quiet and just hope it gets better. No, like we're going to keep fighting. People are going to keep fighting. And so it's I don't know, I just keep coming back to like, is it kind of the beginning of the end, or is it just the normal, the normal
Let's,
way?
let's break down the whole phrase, let's make America great again. We know it's a takeoff, a little bit of a takeoff of Reagan when he came in office about making America great. But it was like, for anybody who's not white, what does that mean? I mean, that's from Asian to Latino to Black. What does that mean, making it great again? Like when, so it was great at one point,
Yeah.
then lost its way, and now we're bringing it back.
Yep.
It's like, so the lost its way part, and we all know what that means, all that. But it's like, well, I want to go back to when was it so great? And was it great? Because we know it wasn't great for everyone. It was great for people like you.
Exactly.
It's like, so I always say that phrase alone is so offensive. And so to me, we have to break down that phrase and get to people and go, wait a minute, you shouldn't even believe that phrase. I mean, no one in America should believe that phrase. Like, history is history. It's all documented. So we need to get rid of that phrase first, I think, at some level, to even dig into what you were talking about at the beginning of the show, like trying to get into.
Well, I agree that phrase is so loosely, it's a dog whistle, but one that we can all hear.
Yes.
But and so I did write one thing down from your list, Rage Against the Machine. So I remember in high school, no, maybe it was a little bit later. Anyway, my ex-best friend Matt, who some people want,
Oh, Matt, yes.
Oh, Matt, we miss Matt, don't we?
Yes.
So Matt was, and probably still is, he was a really good drummer, and he was just into rock and roll, Zeppelin, Kiss. He got into like some, Dave Matthews for a while, and Lenny Kravitz for a while, but only because it rocked, right? And he was good. I mean, I have to say, just no baggage around who he is and everything. As a drummer, he was really good, and he had very kind of pretty limited taste in what he went for. But anyway, for a while, maybe we were I can't remember exactly when this was, but he was really into Rage Against the Machine because he just loved, he was like, oh, listen to this, like, you play.
Great musicians, they're great musicians.
Right, great musician. And I said, yeah, okay, hey, maybe this is something we can agree on. Actually, and I wasn't really into them, but I appreciated their politics and what they were saying. And I said, yeah, and I forgot the lead singer's name, but whatever. I said, yeah, and so, like, he's all about blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of, and he's like, who gives a shit what they've been saying? They've been saying that for years. I just like their music. And I remember that conversation because at the time, and again, I don't remember exactly when it was, I wasn't as politically astute as I am now. But I just said, like, oh, like, yeah, he doesn't care one bit about
which would make them pissed if they knew, which is so
exactly. Well, and it made me think then, and especially now, like, how many people are just not even interested in hearing what people are saying.
How many folks are wearing Ramones t-shirts and never heard a song of theirs? That's how I relate that to.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ramones t-shirts is one that it said the Ramones t-shirt, the God Save the Queen t-shirt. There's a couple of t-shirts, AC/DC Back in Black, are the most sold t-shirts of all time, all the time. And I'm thinking, and I remember asking people, do you even know what, like, I Want to Be Sedated or like Rockwell High School? Do you even know, like, they're like, no, I just like, I mean, they have no, so to me, it reminds you of that, where you're picking out something where that band would be so pissed you're wearing a t-shirt, and Rage Against the Machine would be so pissed, like they would tell them one of them was a fan. Because they're political for a reason within the music. That was the whole point of them. Like Public Enemy was political within the music, that they wanted you to feel what they felt.
Exactly.
That was the point. So you're just listening to music. It's a great melody. I mean, like,
I love it because they rock. It's like, okay, cool. And maybe this isn't the exact parallel, but so Matt liked the music, but he didn't even listen to the message. He knew enough of the message to know that he wasn't going to listen to it, right?
That's what I was going to say. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but that wasn't enough to turn him off from listening to the music because he liked the music.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to figure out what is the parallel when we're talking about,
I know the parallel.
Transgender, care, or, banning DEI in public universities, like the people who are going to support that. And I'm not talking about the DeSantis who who are leading it. Well, kind of them, but more like, yeah, I'll vote for that, or yeah, I support that.
Oh,
Or
I can tell you, Mr. Carol. Can I answer the question, Mr. Carol?
please, yes.
It's the same people who say, no, Trump is, he did do this, he did do that. However, they're picking and choosing the things that he's fighting for or says he's fighting for and likes that fits their agenda. And they can still say, well, I'm not really into Trump himself. Like, yeah, he did. So yeah, he touched that girl inappropriately. Yeah, he said grab him at the pussy or whatever. They're like separating themselves from that and going, but he's the only one who's fighting for this for us. So they're piecemealing, they're picking and choosing just what you're talking about. They do the same thing. They're like, if it was another Republican in office, they'd probably be fine. But right now, since Trump is the leader, and he is leading by like 47, 80, 50 points, they're going with him because he's the choice at the moment. But they're picking and choosing what they want to take out of him. Well, I'm not a homophobe. You can be gay if you want to, but I do believe that life begins. They're picking and choosing what they want.
Yeah.
It's cherry picking.
That makes a lot of sense. And I wonder, I'll ask you, like, isn't that kind of how it always is for anyone? Don't we all kind of do that? And this isn't like I'm not trying to do a whataboutism or like a reverse racism kind of argument, but like, don't we all kind of do that? Like, and I guess I think you're right. And again, going back to Kazuhaga, like this quote, like, people aren't the enemy, the injustice is. So whether it's Trump or DeSantis or Asa Hutchinson or not what's the governor, Huckabee Sanders, whoever's passing these laws, like, yes, they have the power to put these, and I don't know, if people vote on it or support, what their different mechanisms for supporting it. But do you think people in Florida, I know there are people who are just, aghast and like, fuck this. Yeah. But it seems like there are a lot of people like, yeah, I don't know. I guess if he didn't bring it up, I wouldn't go for it. But now that it's there, yeah, I kind of support it. You see what I'm getting at? Like, they don't really have opinion until it exists. And then they're like, well, yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion otherwise. So yeah, that's fine.
It's not a problem until someone says it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
But there's no thinking like,
right.
That if he passes this don't say gay law, that could affect like, young kids who want to come out. That could affect teachers. That could affect, like, there's no thinking of that.
There is no critical race theory happening in elementary schools, and there's no drag queens going to schools all over the country. It's a faux problem. It's not a problem. It's a faux problem. So someone said it's a problem. They find one example, because social media has changed everything. You find one example, it's shared millions of times, then it becomes horrific, and then folks start to go that direction. I guess that's what it is. It's infotainment. Our government is infotainment. It's turned into, it's not even, to me, it's not even real. And I think for those of us who are the others, who don't want to be other, we just want to be just regular folk, I think the question is more to them than us, because we're reacting to what's happening to us most of the time. We're like doing along. We want a Whole Foods in the ghetto, but they don't want to put one there. We have a liquor store around the corner that sells milk for $7 instead of a Whole Foods that sells better milk for $3. That happens all the time all over the country. It's like, but we weren't in charge of it. We're just trying to figure out how to navigate it. So I just feel like it's that majority who makes these rules and who does the urban planning and does all this stuff. They get a choice to be able to do all that thinking and cherry picking. We can't cherry pick a person of color. I don't feel like a chance to cherry pick.
Well, and this is what. So absolutely, and my son's doing one of his final projects on food deserts.
See, there you go. Say, you know what's going on. He knows what's going on.
I mean, it's cool to see, and it wasn't even like he just came to me, hey, Dad, like, what do you think of this? And he has to make like a little video. I'm actually going to voice over it for him.
Oh, good.
He's gonna get like he's gonna do an overhead shot with the iPhone of like, he made all these little props, and he has this whole like 2-minute skit. He's like, but it's hard for me to read it and then put the thing in and then it's like, Dad, can you read? I'm like, sure, I'll read it. So I'm going to be like the voiceover of like, nice. In America, there are, so it's pretty cool. But I mean, it's cool that he's aware enough to do this. And he's in an environment where like, he's being educated, not just by us, of course, but by his teachers and community. which is great that more kids are being aware of this kind of stuff. And hopefully it leads to the, as they grow up, leads to change. So there are fewer food deserts. So there are, no laws banning, DEI in higher education. So there, like all this, I love what you said, these faux problems. I mean, they're not all faux problems. Food deserts.
Right, but some are just faux problems.
Some are, faux problems, right? That then become problems for us who care about people and care about humanity and care about equity have to deal with, right? But things like food deserts or redlining or, all the things, those, you and I know, like it's, oh yeah, redlining, that sucked. That was back in the 50s. Yeah, and it still happens today. Maybe just not officially, but even if it didn't happen, even if every single real estate agent was just super, equitable and fair, it's still, intergenerationally a challenge. Wealth, accumulation, et cetera. So it's like those types of things, because our country was built on those inequalities, like, it's like, is it ever going to be righted?
What's up for you saying? Chandra in chat says one of her best friends is senior vice president for Feeding America. Food insecurity and food deserts are real.
Yep, totally.
I mean, personally, they're real because I live it, so I know they're real. But yes, I'll make sure she said. So thanks everybody in chat. Hello, everybody in chat has been talking. Thank you. I also want to say one thing that's very important, Jerry Karol, to all this whole story, because recently Senator Feinstein was in the news. She had hurt herself and blah blah. She's 900 years old, and I mean, trust me, she did great. I mean, I was a fan. She did great. I was in San Francisco for years. I've met her. I know who she is. The whole thing. It's time to hang it up, and that's my example of we need some term limits. We need some fresh blood. I think that will help too if we give fresh. I don't care if it's younger Republicans or do it. We need fresh blood. We have too many people who are hanging on for dear life, and they're like 10 terms and 11 terms, and they're 1,000 years. I said this before on the show once a long time ago. I'll say it again. If my two choices are two old white guys again that are half dead, I'm just like, that does not make me happy. If that's that Biden's our only choice to beat Trump, like doesn't make me happy. That doesn't make me smile and zippity doo dah down the street. It doesn't. Can you imagine zippity doo dah down the street? And they should hold hands and do that down the street. But no, it's like, but seriously, I'm like, that doesn't make me happy. And even when Bernie Sanders was in, I'm like, old white guy. They're all old white guy. Is that really our choice? Is that our demographic? No. The country's so diverse. Why is it? It's those two are our only hope. That just to me that's sad to me. Yeah, that's completely sad to me.
Well, and Becky in the chat said something that's super relevant. I don't think it is the majority making these decisions. I think they'd like for us to think a majority made their bad decisions. Somehow that means we shouldn't speak out. And that's that. Okay. I mean, gosh, there's lots of ways to go on.
Yeah, with that, yes.
But yeah, gosh.
I know. Our time, it's so funny because we still go time a little bit. I just thought for us, these yes, our shows every week we come up with this unfortunately, and fortunately for us, because that's what we do, unfortunately, there's 1,000 directions that race talk goes to and equity goes to. It's just, I mean, it just really is. And that's what's so sad about this.
For me, that comment around like a majority, I'm not even so sure, even if I agree with like what the majority is, I'm not even so sure, like, I guess on one hand, that's what a democracy is, right? Like the majority, hey, 51% said they wanted it, so here you go. But that seems like there should be like different categories. It's one thing if it's like, I don't know, something that doesn't, everything impacts us as humans, so maybe it's hard to decipher, but it's like, why should a majority, a so-called or an actual majority, get to say that there can't be gender reaffirming healthcare? Why should a majority, again, so-called or actual, be able to say that there can't be DEI training in higher universities, higher education, right? Like that just, but I guess that's just the way it's always going to be, because there are people who genuinely or otherwise don't want that and do think it's harmful. Like I think, yes, it's a lot of dog whistling and a lot of, PR and, vote gathering and all the things, but I think there are people who genuinely think, some of these things are harmful.
No, yeah, and I always look back. I did another show. I have a show called "Have You Heard of Me?" That's about the Filthy 15. You can look it up on Google. It's the 15 songs that the PMRC back in the 80s said were bad. And it's very famous. And we talk about the PMRC, of course, was started by a bunch of moms. Tipper Gore was the leader of it. They wanted to first wanted to ban certain records. Then they wanted rating system. It was a whole thing. And I look back at some of those things. I really do believe they thought some of the stuff really was bad and led to suicide and debauchery. I totally understand. Sometimes I kind of understand it, where they were coming from. They weren't the majority, though. They were a minority of it, but they were loud enough and they had some reach. And again, played on the fear of all these people to get it going. But I really, like you, I really do believe that some folks really believe what they believe. It's not faux outrage, it's real outrage. They really feel that this is bad. That gay folks, I've been watching this thing, there's a group called Taraya on one to rescue a lesbian couple. They had a love scene. Well, what they call love scene for daytime TV. A lot of folks were against it. I don't want to watch two lesbians kissing on daytime TV. I got children, and your children probably should be watching soap operas anyway. They're all bad. That's another story. But it's just kind of like it's this whole thing. But I think some people really do believe that. I don't mind if there's lesbians out there. I just don't want to see them.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them, period. It's like they want to erase. Black folks are fine, they stay over there. They really are scared. They really are scared. And that's why I agree with you. I think there's some folks that really, really do think they're being erased. They think their jobs are being erased, they think their race is being erased. Wherever that comes from, I think men are feeling threatened. They're really feeling threatened by women and by everybody else who's, that doesn't identify as a cis man. It's really, because I'm seeing things against women, like women having more, they shouldn't make as much as we do, and they can't do certain things. I'm like, what? It's like they should be at home and raise our children and be barefoot and pregnant. I'm like, is this 1950? Like, am I going back? Were you going back in time? And I think some people jump on the bandwagons because whatever. But I think some people really do. Those are the ones are scary. Those are the ones who really believe, and then they attach themselves to an official who has power and may align themselves and see, ooh, this group's scared over here. Let me work them up. You and I have seen it. And but I go back in time, I go, there were some Republicans that I didn't like, but didn't bother me so much. They weren't as scary. Bush Jr., Bush Sr., they were pretty bad, but they weren't as scary to me as Trump was. Now as control as Trump was. They did some stuff. Even Clinton, he did some stuff, but he took care of business. I liked him, whatever he was doing there. All politicians have their things. Even Obama, he wasn't perfect either. They all have their stuff. But I think now we're in a sense, since Trump got elected, it broke down the last walls of anything. Having President Kanye is not off the table. Governor, once we got Governor Schwarzenegger in California, it was like, now we can have Governor Mary Carey, Governor Gary Coleman. People were running for office and getting votes. They were getting votes. It wasn't a joke. I could have ran for governor if I got votes. It's not a joke. It's a joke almost sometimes. But once Trump became elected, that changed. It really did change everything in terms of what could be possible that could happen. And when Biden came back in, it was like, we all thought, okay, back to boring politics, perfect. But not necessarily. The tide already turned. The tide had already turned. And I agree with you. I think there's people who really are, there's some folks who really are scared and really do believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And I don't, so how do you change those? You plop in a black neighborhood and everybody's nice. How do you do to make them? Because I know I have people who didn't like me for certain reasons, and then later loved me to death over time and hanging out with me and stuff. So I'm wondering, I mean, I can't always be the answer for everybody, but I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. I've been thinking a lot about like numbers, and not the book of Numbers. I don't even know. I don't even know what the book of Numbers is. I think there is a book of Numbers.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
But just like, and I tell people when we do trainings, and they're usually a few people who really dig it. Like they're almost so glad that, you came in, such a great discussions, great learning and great conversation. And they usually fit this kind of description or prototype of, newish to the work, not a DEI person or social, but, they care and they want to, but inside their organization, they're kind of like, oh, what do I do? And how do I do it? But they really want to, make a difference. They want to be a change agent, and maybe they already are a little bit, but they're just looking, so I'll usually stay after for 10 minutes and, chat with them and stuff. And one thing that I end up saying a lot is like this idea that you don't have to, whether it's on your team, in your organization, whatever the cohort is, you don't have to change everyone. In fact, you never will. You don't have to persuade anyone or everyone. You have to persuade enough people that you can, whatever it is, win the vote, make the difference, get the thing approved, pass this law, break that law, like whatever the agenda is, whatever the cause is, you just need enough people to change. And maybe that's not even always a majority. And I don't know what the magic number is, or, there are people better than I who know, the kind of nuances of this. And when I share that with people, there's almost like these dual reactions. Like on one hand, it's like, yeah, you're right. Like I don't, but then they're like, okay, well, like who are the people, right? And so who was I talking with the other day? Can't remember who it was, but they're like, you know what? I'm speaking to the persuadable, not the converted, the persuadable. So the neutral, but who are persuadable, who are going to kind of. So anyway, I'm sharing all this because whatever the cause, is it always just going to go back and forth? Is it always going to go Obama, Trump, Biden, DeSantis? And I'm not just talking about presidents, just in general. Is it always going to go back and forth? Are we ever going to get to just a fourth? Or in 100 years, are we going to be going? And I'm not talking about little things. I'm talking about just major trends. Because in my political life, the last 30 years, it's been a lot of back and forth.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if we ever get to a fourth and no back.
I'd like to have hope, but I don't. We're gonna break it down now. We're gonna have to end. We have to start to close it off because I can talk. It's already been almost an hour and a half. We can talk forever, but we both to be up early tomorrow. I appreciate you so much, Jared. As always, I love talking to you. I love talking to you stuff. I mean, I could do it forever. Actually, we're planning on something, so stay tuned for that. But I'll let you put a button on. Just kind of, I mean, you asked the question. Like, let's put a button on this. What's the last words you want to say on this?
Well, I like what Becky said, that the important thing is that you and we all continue to talk about it and keep it in front of mind.
Yes.
That I think sometimes we underappreciate that, because and I think even on this call we've been kind of like, there's been a little, at least I'm even sensing it in myself, like a little bit of not hopelessness, but like kind of like just tiredness, exhaustion. But I think Becky's right. Like we just keep talking about it, keep, whatever our areas of influence, our spheres of influence, keep influencing. So I think that's what I want to lend on is, just keep staying in our individual and collective integrity and speaking out, as Becky says, and keep talking about it. And just like raising kids, like they don't change, every overnight. They evolve by the way we are in community with them. So those are my closing thoughts.
And just like kids, it doesn't stop when they turn 18. All right, kids. Well, wish I say that. It continues for the rest of your unnatural life. They still come to you. It doesn't end. So good luck to you. You have a lot more years than I do with the kids. Thank you, Jerry Carroll. A White Guy Confronts Racism is his book. I love his book. That's where you can find him on social media. And he's my buddy. Like I said, we're working on something that we'll announce at some point. So just stay tuned for that. And we will continue doing this, once a month talk. We always do. We'll book another date. So save the date a month from now at some point, and we'll be talking about it again. I'm James Lott Jr. You can follow me where all James Lott Jr.'s are at James Lott Jr. on social media platforms. Extra Connections on Facebook. And thank you so much for joining us in the conversation in chat. We appreciate you. Anybody watching later, share this with whoever you think should hear this. And we'd love to hear your comments. Please give me your comments. We'd love to hear them. And please, let's fight for America.